Baltimore and W London trip ahead. And, I threw out an APB online last week out on my social media on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And I said, I'm looking for anyone that is a London enthusiast, a London expert, or maybe a London native or a UK native, or anyone that loves London that could lend some fun conversation for the thousands of Ravens fans that are headed over to Wembley for the game this week with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I really was racking my brain. I'm like, do I know anyone British, anyone that's connected to, I'm thinking around Baltimore. And my wife elbowed me and said, you got to call Thomas Dolby. And literally hours later, I'm on the line with James Bond promoting the Super Bowl 35 event for Living Classrooms Foundation. And I got into the conversation, and last time I saw Thomas Dolby was at the UA House over on Fayette Street. And I threw a text out, and lo and behold, he still likes me. Thomas Dolby, even though I'm hyperactive, you still like me, Thomas Dolby. Welcome in, man. Welcome back. And I know you're still back living in Baltimore, but you're my token British friend, Thomas.
Thanks very much, Nestor. And how could I not like you when you took me to my first ever Ravens game?
Well, the Ravens won. That's why I like you.
I'm your lucky charm. You were telling me, it's the Steelers. They're like our arch enemies, and it's our third choice quarterback, and it's the end of the season, and there's nothing really riding on it. Don't expect too much.
It's all true.
I show up in your box, and the Ravens start winning.
Ryan Mallett, the only problem is these young guys, they don't remember She Blinded Me with Science and your music career back in the day. They may know you more as the professor of the arts here at Johns Hopkins. I'd say to people, if a guy flies by you on a bike that looks like Thomas Dolby, it's Thomas Dolby. Like, he lives here and is kind of hanging out and doing the Hopkins things. You're also doing stuff at Peabody, right? So tell me a little bit about what you do here in Baltimore and set the stage for that, because I think you and I got acquainted during Light Baltimore a few years ago. And I had an extra ticket when my wife was in her second leukemia battle, and I invited you. And lo and behold, when I think of the UK thing and I thought of you being the perfect guest, I know you do so many different things. You were over in Europe for a long stretch this year, right?
Yes. So this is actually the beginning of my fourth year at Johns Hopkins University. The first three I spent helping set up the new film center in Station North as a joint venture with Micah. And I was teaching film music there. And when that came to an end, I switched to the Peabody Conservatory, which, as you probably know, is one of the schools of Johns Hopkins University. Although it actually predates the university. It's the oldest music conservatory in America, dating back to the mid-19th century. And the Peabody Conservatory is now very rapidly evolving into a 21st century conservatory. And as part of that program, they've brought me in to teach new media music. So commencing next year, I will be teaching a new generation of students how to write music and make sounds for video games and virtual reality.
Did you see this 20 years ago, that this would be something different than maybe it was in the last century, that the music coming in this century would be more digitized and less what people would be familiar with from the 19th century, let's say?
It's definitely different. When you and I were kids, we had our record collections, maybe our tape collections, and increasingly, for subsequent generations, music became something that you just turn on and off like a spigot. You just get the music you want when you want it. You can always get access to new things. All of the music in the world is available to you, but you maybe pick up on recommendations from what your friends are listening to, or maybe tastemakers and DJs, or you plug into a certain playlist on Spotify. So the habits that music listeners have has really changed a lot over the years. And it's the job of universities to actually train musicians to go out and deal with those different environments. It's not all about seats in orchestras in concert halls anymore.
He is Thomas Dolby out on Twitter if you want to find him, and he is around about town often in places helping people, right? And the Living Classrooms Foundation, and we've kept the same company there, and I know the work you've done with the young people in this city and trying to empower and make our city a better place. How did you land here? Can I just ask that? I love when you tell that story, because I mean, you're a guy that's lived in various places around the world. We're going to be talking to you about London specifically here in this conversation for so many of our fans that are going over for the Jaguars game this week. But you chose Baltimore, and that's an interesting, I guess, subject for people that, not a lot of English musicians from London choose to be in Baltimore in 2017.
Musicians come here from bigger cities around the world, and they absolutely love it. And the reason is, it's got a vibrant music and art scene. You get out and about and you hear all styles of music played by musicians from all over the place. And B, it's easy to get things done here. You go to, I don't know, New York, LA, Brooklyn, London, Berlin, and there's such a sense of being overrun by talented people with an agenda that anything you do is a drop in the bucket, but it's really refreshing when you come here. And people are friendly, and they've actually got the time of day for you, and they're actually eager to help you get things done. So for any musician or artist coming to Baltimore, it's really a breath of fresh air. I mean, this is a great city, and don't let people put it down. And don't put it down yourselves, Baltimore residents, because this is a fabulous place, and I've lived in a few fabulous places.
Well, and London's one of them, right? I've been to London twice. I had a British girlfriend in 1999 and spent a week there around New Year's, and I actually saw New Order play at a castle on New Year's Eve to kick in the year. It was wonderful. I had a great London music, thing, and went to Piccadilly and did all of that. But it had been 20 years since I'd been to London, and my wife and I went about 6 weeks ago with a man who saved her life, who lives in Germany, who is a big NFL fan, and that's all part of the marketing part of the NFL trying to expand to the other side of the water and take natural soccer, basketball, traditional fans and make them fans of the National Football League. That's what these games are all about. And we spent 3 days just going about. We're taking about 100 people over, Thomas. Ravens fans. We're doing 5 days of different tourist stuff, and my wife and I are going to sneak off for a day as well to see a show. And I want to go to the Royal Albert Hall and see Ryan Adams because I've seen so many shows on tape there, everything from Rod Stewart straight on to Led Zeppelin and everyone else. So there's such music in London, and I think to some people, some Londoners never leave London, and many do, but if they do, they leave for New York. I think a lot of people here, I've got a handful of friends, Baltimoreans, who now live in London who are going to be participating in my radio. I found these people randomly in sort of the same way I found you to tell me some stories about what makes London special. It's a place for many of our fans they've never been, and it is a little bit big and overwhelming just when you look at the subway to start with, right?
Well, it's a massive subway system. Yeah, we call it the Tube. If you look at a tube map, it's incredibly complicated. But anybody on the Tube will help you find your way around, and it's a friendly and a safe place to be for the most part. Today's terror activity notwithstanding, it's an easy city to get around. It's a city that lends itself very well to walking because driving, heaven knows, those streets are pretty narrow and go in all sorts of directions. Our streets were not designed for cars, Nestor. They were designed for horses and carts. And so it's not a well-laid-out city if you're a driver. But if you're a pedestrian, you'll see amazing stuff all over the city. And it's a great place to just wander around.
Do you love to brag on it? Brag on your Britishness in London, and when someone says to you, "Okay, I'm going to London. What should I do? Give me 5 fabulous things that anyone that's ever spent 5 days in London they should be doing."
You mean aside from seeing the Ravens play at Wembley Stadium?
Well, that's Sunday's activities now. We're trying to build things around that. There will be some free time. There'll be some pints consumed and some pub-related activities, I'm sure. But obviously the Big Ben and all of that, the traditional stuff you see in a tourist map. But we found it just wild to just get off the Tube and walk in any direction. I mean, without even a destination, just wandering. That's probably my favorite thing to do in any international city. Yeah,
well, I think probably the best introduction is if you walk by the side of the Thames, around the Houses of Parliament, through to London Bridge, Tower Bridge. On either side of the Thames there, you can just have a fantastic walk. There's all sorts of stuff going on. You see the most amazing blend of architecture, some of it, 1,000 years old, some of it brand new. And that's a great place to start. Now, if you arrive in London and you're jet lagged and you find you can't sleep at 3 or 4 in the morning, that's actually a great time to take a taxi ride around the city because there's no traffic. And if you get a friendly black cab driver, he can whisk you all around the main sites of the city in, half an hour or so. And it's a lot easier than doing it during the day when it's really busy. So that's the tip if you find yourself
that is awesome. That is your gift to anyone, that if you're stranded in the middle of the night, get in a cab and ride around and see the whole place because you can. He is Thomas Dolby. You can find him out on Twitter. You can find him around Baltimore, although he does hail from London. So tell me about your hometown and your experience, because you were very, very interested in going to an NFL game. I was kind of surprised you knew more than you thought you knew about how the game is played and rules. You led on to me like you didn't really understand what was going on, but you really did. And it turned out to be kind of a special, amazing day. I think soccer's relatively easy to understand once you understand on and offside. There are some games going on some pitches in various places, but you do have a back. You are a sport fan, just not of the traditional NFL. And I guess people your children's age, maybe young Londoners, hey, they're going to sell 80 or 90,000 tickets here, Thomas. I mean, these are not exhibition games anymore. They're not just friendlies. These are legitimate games, and the NFL has embraced this thing. But it really does start with, people there love sport, right? I mean, you grew up with all sport, right?
Well, they do. And British TV has been showing NFL games for 20 years. But what they used to do is they'd license it from the American networks. And when things got complicated, they would fade down the American commentary, and a British commentator would come in and explain for the dunderheads across the Atlantic. So in the middle of a Super Bowl, the sound would fade down, and a BBC voice would go, "The Patriots' wide receiver was out of bounds when he received the ball."
Reaffirming the rules, though. But you need to teach the game, because the American broadcasters don't really teach the game. They just sort of assume you understand it already,
Yeah, well, that's true. Coming here and watching American sports, there's an awful lot of stuff. I mean, it's the same with baseball or anything. I don't really get a whole lot of what's going on. So you need a sort of a primer, coming into it. And I think soccer is a relatively easy game to understand. I think, the offside rule confuses a lot of Americans, and it is a little bit confusing. It's especially frustrating when you think you just saw a goal and you're celebrating it, and then, the linesman is waving his flag and the referee says no goal. That's pretty frustrating because it's very hard to see in the heat of the moment.
For you, where did you grow up? And give me your background in sport and your team, because I know you do support. They're not called franchises; they're clubs, correct?
Yeah, no, it's not a franchise. So I was born in London. I was born actually not far from Wembley Stadium in Hammersmith.
Is that Hammersmith, like the Odeon, the Hammersmith Odeon, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. Okay.
So I spent my whole life supporting a team called West Ham United, who are actually the other end of London from my end. They're in the east end of London. They actually play in the London Olympic Stadium, which is built for the 2012 Olympics. And we just moved there last season, which was a rather controversial thing. West Ham tend to end up sort of in the middle of the Premier League. We get relegated every now and then. We haven't won it for, 120 years or something. So we're definitely not in the top flight. People think of top flight Premier Leagues. You generally think of, Manchester United and Manchester City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham, and so on. And Chelsea, of course. Many of those are London teams. Sadly, if you go over for the Ravens game, there won't be any Premier League games going on either side of that. Both Spurs and Chelsea are playing on the 22nd away from home, and Arsenal have a game also away from home on Monday. So if you're willing to travel outside London, you can see a Premier League game, but there's not very much going on in London.
Wembley Stadium, I mean, I remember Live Aid and that version of Wembley Stadium with, Radio Gaga and Queen and all that went on that day. By the way, I was in Philadelphia at the JFK Stadium for Live Aid, so that was a pretty special day for me. But the new Wembley Stadium and the big arch that is there, it's quite an iconic place, but it's a different Wembley Stadium than that one from 50 years ago, right?
Yeah, and I think very often you probably find the same thing. It takes a few years for stadiums to really sort of develop their own personality. But it's a fabulous stadium, and there's an amazing atmosphere there that doesn't really exist anywhere else. I actually played at Live Aid with David Bowie in 1985. And my memory of the old stadium, which had those very iconic twin gold towers at the entrance, was that I actually helicoptered into the stadium with Bowie. And Bowie was absolutely terrified of flying. So whereas, in fact, in real life, he was a very nice, very generous guy, while we were in this helicopter, he was a complete diva. And he was bitching about this and bitching about that and chain smoking in the helicopter, much to the pilot's annoyance. And I remember we banked over Wembley Stadium. You mentioned Queen and Radio Gaga. It was in the early days of the Jumbotron. And I remember having this vision of Freddie Mercury crooning up to the heavens on the video screen, and Bowie in the foreground with his hat pulled down over his eyes, chain-smoking Marlboros.
This is why I have you on, man. The rock stars have the best stories. He is Thomas Dolby. He is a London native, but a Baltimore resident. And the resident, so the title is Professor of the Arts at Johns Hopkins, working very close with the Peabody Conservatory here in Baltimore. So if you see him riding on a bike around the streets, it is him. So let me tell you what we're doing, Thomas, and you little touristy thing for us. We're staying on the east side over past Cannery Wharf in the Docklands area. There's a bunch of hotels they built near the XL Center, all for the Olympics, which apparently used to be a little bit of a rough scrabble, real wharf area that's now relatively gentrified. And they've built this Emirates Air cable car that you ride over the Thames to the O2 Arena. It lets you off at the foot of the O2 Arena. And, of course, Led Zeppelin, they did it one time. They did it there, which makes it legendary for a guy like me. But that whole O2 Arena is a giant sort of Vegas-style bar, restaurant, entertainment. You can bowl there. You can do things there, see a movie, the whole deal. We're going to take our fans over there on Saturday. So we have a little pub, and we have mushy peas and legitimate, proper fish and chips and pints at our place. It's a Fox at XL Center. We're going to walk 2 blocks, and we're doing the Emirates Air cable car. And you talk about afraid of heights. I guess I wouldn't be getting David Bowie on a cable car, certainly not on a windy day. There is a video of me my wife shot when I was over there 6 weeks ago, and I was scared poopless. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, it's a little uncomfortable, but it is a lovely view. And that's our party on Saturday, but they got 4 extra free days, and I figure I don't want to get in anyone's way that wants to hang out at Hyde Park or go to Kensington, or certainly we did the Churchill Museum, and I don't know if you've ever done that, but that was the most amazing museum I've ever been in, and we did that 6 weeks ago, so I'm recommending that. And my wife and I and my son and his wife are going to Abbey Road, and we're going to take the dork picture, Thomas. We're gonna walk, and we're gonna smile, and we're gonna hope that some tourist takes a clear photo so we can be idiots on Abbey Road. So there's so much rock and roll history there, man, right? Like that could take up weeks just trying to figure out where Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and the Stones and the Beatles did stuff, right?
Yeah, there's a Pink Floyd exhibit going on, an exhibition going on in Kensington at the moment. I hope it's still running on the 24th of September, because that is absolutely extraordinary.
I am Googling it right now. Pink Floyd, give me that again. Kensington?
Pink Floyd exhibition.
Okay.
And one of the most amazing things there was that Rick Wright from Pink Floyd spends about half an hour talking about one single chord on Dark Side of the Moon and the significance of that chord. But there's all sorts of Pink Floyd regalia there. It's just astonishing to see. They were really the first band that did these sort of mega concerts with flying pigs and fireworks displays and the Wall, of course, and things like that. And I was lucky enough to take part in the Wall with Roger Waters in Berlin in 1990. So that's my little claim to fame there.
I saw the Flying Pig this summer. I loved every flight of the Flying Pig this summer. He is Thomas Dolby. You can find him out on Twitter. He's around town. I'm on this thing. It is open, Thomas Dolby, until October the 15th. It is there, pinkfloydexhibition.com. You've just given us our second gold star tip that only a guy like you could give me, which one is 3 a.m. if you're jet lag, get in a taxi and see London properly, and 2, go to the Pink Floyd exhibition. And I'm trying to do Royal Albert Hall. I'm doing the Abbey Road Dork Walk with my wife and my son and his wife. Anything else that you could think of, that a direction to stir a fellow like me in that would be entertaining and titillating?
I think you might love Camden Lock, Camden Market. It's a little bit to the north of London. It's an old area that the canal goes through that used to be wharfs and warehouses and so on, and has now been converted into this most sort of Blade Runner-like bazaar of stalls, clothes, jewelry, art shops, and it's an incredible magnet for all sorts of strange species of human being from all over Europe. So Camden Lock Market is open every day of the week, but on weekends it's especially active, and you can get to it from Camden Tube, which is easy to find. Camden Town Tube.
I just Googled it. It is very close to the Regent's Park as well as the London Zoo, and everyone can remember it here because of Camden Yards. This is Camden Town, and it's very close to King's Cross as well. So there, have at it. Thomas, you have been just a wonderful tour guide, and you have given me tips that if I wind up at Camden Market outside the London Zoo because of you, I'm sending you a selfie and tagging you on social media. It'll be your fault. And I promise you that once Luke Jones, who is our partner in crime here, who covers the Ravens for us, he is going on the trip. When he finds out about this Pink Floyd thing, he owes you the beverage of your choice locally, because he's as big a Pink Floyd fan as I know, and he's going to be over the moon. So thank you very much for your time. Love you. Appreciate you. Still doing Light Baltimore? Give me a little plug here. Tell me what else you're doing, because I know you're doing other cool stuff here that people can associate with you here in Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, mainly I'm just rounding up students for my course when it starts next year. The VR is really about to explode, Nestor. I don't know if you've been sort of tracking how it's going to work in the sports space, but a couple of days ago, Apple announced this whole new initiative around augmented reality. So very soon, your iPhone, if you point it in the direction of a game, is going to give you all the statistics that you could possibly want about the game, including replays and so on. But that's something that is going to be really exploding on cell phones and VR devices over the next few years.
We'll keep an eye on it, and we'll stay in touch. And anytime I can help you here in town, please allow me to do so. You've been a wonderful tour guide in and about London. And, man, I'm one for one. I can't wait to get over there this week and enjoy your homeland and come back with some fun stories and some fun pictures. Thanks for the time, Thomas. You're always generous with us.
All right, thanks, Nestor.
You got it. Thomas Dolby, you can find him out on Twitter, as well as at Johns Hopkins and at the Peabody Conservatory right here in Baltimore, Maryland. I am going through London people, London ideas, London tour guides, London tips, and taking folks over to London. We will be at the Fox at XL on the east side of London in the Docklands area beginning at 11 a.m. on Saturday. It's an open party. There's no admission. There's just come as you are, be purple, have a good time. We're leaving at 2:52 to honor Ray Lewis and our 2 championships as well, 2 blocks away. And we're walking to the Emirates Air. We're going to take it over to the O2 Arena and get a couple of pints, eat some fish and chips and some mushy peas, and have fun. So that's our one event we're doing in London, other than the folks that are going over with us that'll be mixing and mingling with so many of you. I hope everyone is buckled up for a good time, hopefully a good game as the Ravens take on the Jaguars at Wembley Stadium this week. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net. Anything you miss, you can find in the bio, Toyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Just download the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear, even in London. You can listen, watch, be a part of it. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. We'll be doing all of that from over there and trying to paint the picture of the Ravens' first ever international trip to London, England. Big thanks to Thomas Dolby. That was just super duper awesome. I am Nestor. You can find me easily nasty at WNST.net. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.